You know those cookie-cutter suburbs where every house looks the same. The lawns are shaved to military precision, and the air smells like fresh-cut grass mixed with passive-aggressive notes taped to doors. That was Willow Creek Estates, just outside Phoenix, Arizona. On the surface, it was paradise. White picket fences, approved beige siding, and kids riding bikes in perfectly straight lines. But underneath lurked the real monster. Karen Hargrove, our HOA president, the self-appointed queen who patrolled in her golf cart like it was a throne, clipboard in one hand and a ruler in the other. She measured grass to the millimeter, fined you for unauthorized flower colors, and always ended every violation notice with "bless your heart. It's for the children and property values." My name is Riley Hale, 34 years old, estate attorney at a private firm in the Valley. I'd spent the last decade watching families tear each other apart over money and houses, never dreaming I'd need those same loopholes to protect the home I'd bought for my mom. 5 years ago, when her first stroke hit and the mortgage became crushing, I stepped in. I bought the house on Maple Lane outright, paid every bill, converted the dining room into her bedroom, installed grab bars, hired day nurses, everything from my own savings. We kept the deed in Mom's name for the senior tax breaks and Medicare perks. Smart on paper. Or so we thought. Karen hated me from day one. My front bed had non-approved lavender instead of the official beige roses. My ramp was unsightly. My American flag flew 2 inches too high on certain holidays. Fines piled up like parking tickets from hell. $250 here, $500 there. I paid them quietly. I had bigger things to worry about. Mom needed me. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was knee-deep in trust documents when my assistant knocked. "Hospital," she mouthed. "Mom's 3rd stroke." By the time I reached the ER, she was already intubated, machines breathing for her. Karen showed up 4 hours later, reeking of cigarette smoke and yesterday's entitlement, muttering something about traffic on the community loop. She lived 6 minutes away. We both knew it. For 3 years, I'd been Mom's primary caregiver. I practically lived at the hospital through infections, pneumonia, the slow slide we both saw coming. Karen visited twice, both times only when nurses needed insurance info, then vanished like cheap perfume. I held Mom's hand through every night terror. She passed on a Thursday morning just as spring broke over the desert. I was her whispering it was okay to let go. Karen was at the country club, probably complaining about my eyesore bird feeder. I knew because the charge hit Mom's old credit card an hour after she died. I handled everything. The funeral home, the obituary, the service at Desert View Cemetery where Mom's parents rested. $15,000 I'd been saving from my own down payment. Mom deserved the mahogany casket, the flowers, the proper goodbye. Karen showed up late, slipping into a back pew during the eulogy in a wrinkled black pantsuit that looked rented. She checked her phone while the minister talked about redemption. At the reception in the community center. Ironic, right? She finally cornered me. "Riley, dear," she cooed, voice dripping fake sympathy. "Thank you for this lovely spread. Your mother deserved a proper send-off. But we really must talk about the house and those accounts. The HOA has standards, and with her gone there are back dues and a special assessment waiting." I kept my voice steady. "Tomorrow at my office. We'll do this properly." The next day, she arrived 15 minutes late, clutching a manila folder like body armor. "Coffee," I offered. "Let's just get this done," she snapped, dropping into the leather chair. "I know what you're thinking, but the house is community property now. I've been paying into the standards for 15 years. The lie was so bold, I almost laughed out loud. I'd bought the house in a private sale. Mom was seller, I was buyer. Mortgage in my name. 60 months of payments. Not one dime from Karen or the HOA. She slid the document across the table. "Your mother signed a special HOA estate management agreement just 2 days before she passed. It grants the association full control to preserve property values. It's notarized, witnessed, filed. Legal." The signature looked like Mom's, shaky, deliberate. But I knew every stroke of her handwriting. She couldn't hold a pen after the last stroke. Medical records prove complete loss of fine motor control. The notary was some nobody from the other side of town. The witness was Susan, Karen's best friend on the board. My blood ran cold, but I kept my face blank. "This is impossible," I said quietly. Mom was unconscious. Nurses logged every visitor. Karen smiled that pearl-clutching smile. The doctor noted a moment of clarity. She wanted to make things right with the community. In the meantime, I've had the locks changed for security. The HOA will be managing the property until you comply. She stood, straightening her jacket. "Oh, and Riley? I know you prepaid the funeral. Consider it your final gift to the neighborhood. No reimbursement." She left thinking she'd won, but she just handed me the exact evidence I needed. Karen Hargrove thought she was playing chess with the neighborhood. She forgot I wrote the rule book 2 years ago. That night, I sat in Mom's empty house, surrounded by her quilts and the medical equipment we no longer needed. The forged agreement lay on the coffee table next to the original power of attorney I'd drafted myself. Clause B was ironclad. Any attempt to supersede this POA while Mom was mentally incapacitated would be null and void, regardless of notarization or new filings. Karen's document didn't just violate it, it screamed fraud. I called Harold Grayson, Mom's old attorney. "Riley, that's impossible," he said after I described the paper. I visited her that week. She was barely conscious. He agreed to meet in an hour. "And don't let her near the house. You're still the legal owner." I didn't call the police yet, because Karen had made the classic mistake every bully does. She gave me a copy of her fake document complete with notary details and witness signatures. I recognized Susan's loopy handwriting from every HOA meeting where she'd voted to fine me for breathing. Susan worked part-time at the local assisted living facility. She'd know how to forge a dying woman's signature and find a notary who didn't ask questions. The next 2 weeks were a blur of hotel rooms and sleepless nights while Karen paraded around my house like she owned it. I drove past Maple Lane every morning on the way to work, watching her golf cart parked in my driveway, newspapers piling up on the porch she was too lazy to touch. The first official notice arrived via courier. The county had registered Karen's forged agreement. On paper, she now controlled the estate. But the filed version had an extra attachment, a fake physician's statement claiming Mom had a moment of lucidity. The doctor's name was some quack from a cash-only clinic I'd never heard of. Mom's entire care team had been at Banner Medical. Harold confirmed it. "You can't just staple on new pages after notarization. This stinks." He messenger-ed over every original document, especially Clause B. I logged into Mom's accounts. The checking balance that once held $8,000 was down to $500. Savings empty. Small investment account gone. All transferred under the forged agreement. $40,000 vanished in 10 days. That evening, I parked across the street and watched shadows move behind the curtains I'd hung for Mom. A car I didn't recognize sat beside Karen's golf cart, a shiny Lexus. The front door opened, and Susan stepped out carrying Mom's jewelry box. They were already dividing the spoils. I snapped photos, license plate, timestamp, Susan's smug face. Every detail mattered. Back at the hotel, I spread everything across the bed, bank statements, medical records, the original, the forgery, photos, timelines. The pattern was clear. This wasn't a desperate grab by a grieving HOA president. It was calculated. Karen had done this before. I called Harold. The notary on her document, Rebecca Walsh, was disciplined 3 years ago for improper verification. She works out of a check-cashing place on the west side. "What about the doctor?" I asked. "Works at a medical marijuana certification clinic. Not exactly Vanderbilt stroke specialists." The pieces clicked. A discredited notary, a quack doctor, Susan with access to elderly signatures. They'd built a little forgery ring inside the HOA. Karen wasn't just stealing my house. She was running a side hustle, evicting non-compliant owners and flipping properties to her friends at bargain prices. I met with the district attorney's office Friday morning. Brought everything. They were very interested. Meanwhile, Karen emailed through her attorney. Miss Hale, my client has graciously allowed you 2 weeks to process your grief. However, she now requires you turn over all documents and passwords. Additionally, she demands reimbursement for funeral expenses you authorized without board consent. 48 hours. I laughed out loud. Without board consent, as if she'd ever contributed anything except fines. I called Sheila Morrison, investigative reporter for the Arizona Republic. We'd met at a legal conference. Sheila, I have an HOA horror story with a twist. The president just forged my dying mother's signature to steal the house. She cleared her mourning. Elder fraud with an HOA twist? I'm in. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Karen in Mom's house, touching her things, selling her memories for community standards. But underneath the rage was something colder, sharp determination. She thought the notarized paper was her winning move. She thought the HOA bylaws would protect her because she'd filed first. But she'd forgotten I helped draft parts of Arizona's elder abuse statutes during my internship. I knew exactly which laws she'd broken. More importantly, Mom had recorded a video with Harold 2 years ago explaining why she gave me the POA instead of trusting the neighborhood busybody. For the record, Mom had said straight to the camera, I no longer trust Karen Hargrove with anything. She has a habit of bullying residents, and I fear she would leave me destitute. That video was my insurance policy. Karen's forged documents were now evidence of a crime Arizona prosecutors took very seriously. She wanted to play legal games? Fine. But she should have known better than to challenge the daughter who wrote the rule book. The check-cashing store on the west side squatted between a payday loan shop and a liquor store, neon signs promising fast cash and notary services. I sat in my car across the street, watching desperate people stream in and out. This was where Karen had brought her forged agreement, a place where questions weren't asked if the fee was right. Rebecca Walsh was easy to spot when she arrived at 10 a.m., keys jangling, bleach blonde hair, scrubs that suggested a medical background she didn't have. I waited 20 minutes, then walked in. The place smelled like stale cigarettes and broken dreams. Rebecca sat behind bulletproof glass, scrolling her phone. Her customer service smile faltered when she saw my suit. Help you. I placed a folder on the counter. I need some estate documents notarized. My mother passed recently. Her eyes flickered with recognition at Mom's name. I slid the forged agreement under the partition. This is your stamp, isn't it? Rebecca's face went pale. She pushed the paper back. I notarize dozens every week. Can't remember them all. Of course not. But this one's special. See, my mother was unconscious in the ICU that day. So I'm very curious how she traveled across town to sign in your office. She lit a cigarette, ignoring the no smoking sign. People make mistakes with dates. I produced the hospital security photo. Mom intubated, timestamp 2 hours before the alleged signing. No mistake. I'm an attorney specializing in elder fraud, and what I found is a pattern. You've been warned before about notarizing without verification. Rebecca's hands trembled. You can't prove anything. Actually, I can. Your notary log shows 5 documents that day. The security camera next door shows only 4 customers entering. So either someone turned invisible or you notarized pre-signed papers. She stubbed out the cigarette. What do you want? The truth. Who brought you these papers? Who paid you? I reminded her she was already on probation. One more violation and she lost her commission forever. But cooperation could help with the DA. 20 minutes later, I left with 3 pages of written testimony. Rebecca admitted Susan brought the pre-signed document along with a practice signature Karen had worked on. Paid her $500 cash, probably from Mom's own accounts. My next stop was the assisted living facility where Susan worked evenings. The administrator agreed to see me immediately when I mentioned fraud involving an employee. Susan's employment records showed she'd accessed medical forms on the exact date in question. Signature exemplars were missing. She called in sick the week after Mom died and requested family leave. I left with another folder of evidence. My phone buzzed with messages. Harold confirming the DA meeting, Sheila asking for details, and an unknown number. You should stop digging. This is between Karen and you. Don't drag others into it. I screenshot the intimidation text. Another charge added. That evening, a forensic document examiner studied the signatures under magnification. Amateur work. Hesitation marks. Unnatural pen pressure. Someone traced from a sample. She was ready to testify. By the time I returned to the hotel, I had a briefcase full of proof and 3 voicemails from Karen's attorney, each more panicked than the last. The 48-hour deadline was approaching and they were sweating. Good. Let them. I ordered room service and spread the evidence across the desk. Rebecca's confession, Susan's records, the forensic report, security footage, bank statements, timelines. The picture was crystal clear. Karen had planned this while Mom was dying. She'd recruited Susan, practiced forging signatures, found a corrupt notary, even located a quack doctor. They'd waited until Mom was weakest, then struck. But they'd left digital footprints, paper trails, witnesses who flipped. Most importantly, they'd underestimated me. My phone rang. Harold. The DA's very interested, especially with the notary's confession. They're preparing warrants. And that clause be your mother insisted on? Ironclad. Even if the forgery was perfect, it's still invalid based on her documented condition. I smiled for the first time in weeks. Mom had known somehow. She'd protected me from beyond the grave. The next morning, Sheila's story broke online. Phoenix HOA president accused of forging dying resident's signature to seize home. Comments flooded in, dozens of families sharing similar nightmares. Karen had been running this scam for years, targeting elderly owners, racking up fake fines, then forging transfer agreements to clean up the neighborhood for her inner circle. Karen was still in my house, probably congratulating herself on her cleverness. Let her enjoy it a little longer. The real game was just beginning. The HOA annual meeting was scheduled for the community center, the same hall where Mom's funeral reception had been held. Word had spread through the neighborhood. Riley Hale was about to dismantle the president in real time. Karen arrived early, flanked by Susan and 2 other board members who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. She wore a new power suit and carried herself with the swagger of someone who believed she'd already won. I entered precisely on time, accompanied by Harold and 2 associates from my firm. We took seats quietly. My briefcase stayed closed. Let them show their hand first. Karen cleared her throat at the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to finalize the transfer of the Hale property according to the estate management agreement executed last month. My client, the HOA, has been more than patient. I stood. How thoughtful, especially considering you changed the locks on my property without notice. She smiled thinly. The HOA's property now, as established by the agreement. I opened my folder, thin compared to their stack. Shall we review that document line by line? Karen shifted. We don't have time for games. Just sign over the passwords. Oh, but I insist. I placed the forged agreement on the projector. I assumed the board verified the authenticity before filing with the county? Naturally, she snapped. It's properly notarized by Rebecca Walsh. I clicked to the first slide, Rebecca's photo and disciplinary record. This Rebecca Walsh, currently under investigation. Did you know she was on probation for improper verification? The room murmured. Karen's eyes darted to Susan. I slid Rebecca's written confession across the table. 3 pages detailing how Susan brought pre-signed papers, paid cash, and how Karen had practiced the signature. The murmurs turned to gasps. Karen's face turned an interesting shade of purple. This is fabricated. You're trying to intimidate the entire board. I placed the hospital visitor's log. No record of any notary visiting Mom that day. No record of your mysterious doctor either. Next slide, the forensic analysis. Clear evidence of tracing. Hesitation marks. Someone practiced this signature using exemplars from Mom's medical forms. Forms Susan had access to at work. Harold spoke. We've subpoenaed security footage from the check cashing store. Would you like to see who entered Rebecca's office that day? Karen stood abruptly. This is harassment. We're leaving. Sit down, Karen. My voice carried cold authority. You want to do this legally? Then let's be thorough. Let's discuss the $40,000 you already withdrew from Mom's accounts using this fraudulent document. That money is for community improvements, she sputtered. Interesting legal theory. Every deposit was traceable to Mom's Social Security and my transfers. Your contributions? Zero. Unless we count the cash withdrawals that coincided with your country club lunches. Susan was sweating now. I connected my laptop to the big screen. Security footage from the assisted living facility played. Susan accessing the records room after hours, leaving with a full bag. The board members shifted uncomfortably. One woman whispered, I always thought those fines seemed high. Karen's bravado cracked. You don't understand. I deserve something. 20 years I've given to this community while people like you flout the rules. So you decided to become exactly what you accused everyone else of being, I said levelly. A con woman who forged a dying resident's signature to steal her daughter's house. I pulled out the final document. Do you know what this is, Karen? The original POA from 2 years ago. Look at Clause B. I read aloud. In the event of mental incapacitation, any attempt to supersede this power of attorney shall be considered null and void, regardless of notarization or witness testimony. Harold leaned forward. Your mother specifically included that clause because she was worried about this exact scenario. She knew someone might try to take advantage of her vulnerability. I met Karen's eyes. She knew you. The community center doors opened. 2 uniformed officers entered, followed by the detective I'd met that morning. Karen Hargrove, we have a warrant for your arrest on charges of forgery, elder abuse, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent. As they cuffed her, Karen's eyes locked on mine. You vindictive little. No, I said, standing slowly. It belongs to the person who bought it, maintained it, and protected it, just like Mom wanted. Susan was already backing toward the exit, papers abandoned. This meeting is concluded. After they were gone, Karen in custody, Susan fleeing her car, I sat back down. My hands shook now that the adrenaline faded. Harold squeezed my shoulder. You did well. Your mother would be proud. Sheila was waiting outside with her recorder. It's time for the rest of Phoenix to know what kind of woman Karen Hargrove really is. As I told the story, I thought about the next steps, criminal charges, civil suit, clearing the fraudulent filings, ensuring Susan faced justice. But first, I had a story to tell. Not just about one forged document, but about the vulnerability of elderly homeowners and the predators who wear pastel cardigans and speak of community standards while planning their betrayal. The morning after Karen's arrest, I stood in Mom's house. My house again, surveying the damage. Drawers pulled out, files scattered, even family photos removed from frames as if she'd been hunting hidden cash. But in her greedy frenzy, she'd overlooked the closet safe I'd installed myself. Inside were the originals and something far more valuable, Mom's video recording. I pressed play. Mom's voice filled the room, strong and clear from 2 years earlier. This is Margaret Hale, of sound mind, explaining why I'm granting power of attorney to my daughter, Riley, instead of trusting the neighborhood. Karen Hargrove has a habit of bullying residents. I fear she would leave me destitute. She detailed every worry, then added, I am including Clause B of my daughter's recommendation. Should I become incapacitated, no subsequent agreement can override this one. Harold's voice confirmed the date and witnesses. Then the video file, Mom looking straight at the camera, repeating the words with firm conviction. My phone buzzed. Sheila, the story's live. Check the comments. The headline read, Phoenix HOA president exposed in forgery scheme to steal dying resident's home. Comments poured in, families sharing identical nightmares. One stood out. This happened to my grandmother. We couldn't prove the signatures. Thank you for showing it's possible to fight back. Harold texted, DA wants to meet again. They've connected Karen to 3 other cases. Susan's been busy. The scope was staggering. Hundreds of thousands stolen from grieving families who couldn't afford lawyers. I spent the morning documenting every ransacked drawer. By afternoon, I'd heard from 6 more victims. Each story was the same. Elderly owner, sudden fines, forged transfer agreement after death, Susan as witness, Rebecca as notary. I called Harold. We need to expand the investigation. This isn't just about my house. The DA was already on it. They'd frozen Karen's and Susan's assets. They wanted me to testify before the grand jury. My case was the strongest. That evening, I stood on the porch where I'd once watched Karen and Susan loading Mom's jewelry. The house was mine again. Locks changed, security upgraded, Mom's belongings restored. My phone rang, a collect call from county jail. Against my better judgment, I accepted. You destroyed my life. Karen's voice was raw. 20 years I gave to this community. 20 years you spent terrorizing it, I corrected. And this is how you repaid the residents who trusted you. I'm going to lose everything. You already did the moment you forged Mom's signature. Then she cracked. Susan says she'll testify it was all my idea. Of course she will. You'd better hope your public defender is better than the one who filed your fraudulent documents. I hung up. There was nothing left to say. The stars came out over the desert. Somewhere other families were reading Sheila's article, finding courage to come forward. Tomorrow I'd face the grand jury. But tonight I had one more thing to do. I opened Mom's secret credit union account, the one she'd hidden from everyone, squirreling away $20 and $50 at a time. $3,200. A sticky note in her shaky handwriting for Riley. My secret savings. Don't let them know. I transferred it to a new fund I was establishing, the Margaret Hale Legal Aid Fund for HOA victims who couldn't afford to fight back. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Mom would have loved the irony. The money she hid from Karen would now help convict her and protect others. The original POA documents went back in the safe along with the recordings and evidence files. But I kept one thing out, a photo of Mom in her garden, smiling with pure joy. We got her, Mom, I whispered. Just like you knew we would. The house settled around me, peaceful for the first time in months. Tomorrow would bring grand jury testimony, indictments, the slow grind of justice. But tonight I was home, surrounded by Mom's quilts and memories, knowing I'd kept my promise. 6 months later, the courthouse steps were slick with rain as I exited the final hearing. Karen received 15 years. Susan 18. The judge's gavel had barely fallen when families gathered in the victim services room. We'd recovered $1.8 million in stolen assets. Each family received restitution plus court-ordered damages. The Arizona Republic ran a follow-up. HOA forgery ring dismantled. Daughter's secret clause sparks statewide reform. The Margaret Hale Elder Protection Act passed with bipartisan support. Stricter verification for estate changes involving incapacitated owners, harsher penalties for HOA fraud, and a permanent fund. That evening, the victim families gathered in the same community center where it all started. The space that once witnessed grief now hosted healing. Dorothy, whose husband had been Karen's first known victim, taught document security workshops. The Morrisons started a speaker bureau for assisted living homes. Each tragedy transformed into prevention. Helen approached me. The families want to create an endowment. We're calling it the Margaret Hale Memorial Fund. I couldn't speak for a moment. Mom, who saved $20 a time, would have a fund bearing her name, protecting vulnerable homeowners for generations. Outside, the desert night was clear. Stars sparkled above Willow Creek Estates. The lawns were still manicured, the fences still white. But the queen was gone. The neighborhood breathed easier. I walked through Mom's garden where the tulip bulbs she'd ordered before her last stroke were finally blooming, red and yellow against green grass. Life returning to spaces greed had tried to claim. Back at the kitchen table, I pulled out Mom's recipe box and made her famous chocolate cake. I set 2 places, one for me, one empty, but somehow full. We did it, Mom, I said to the empty chair. We got her. We got them all. And we made sure it can't happen again. Outside, rain had given way to clear skies. And somewhere in the state prison system, Karen was learning to live with the consequences of choosing power over people. The house settled around me, no longer a crime scene but a home. In spring, the tulips would bloom brighter. By then, the fund would have helped dozens more families. Mom's name would live not in the theft someone attempted, but in the protection she provided. That was better than any revenge. It was a legacy worth leaving, a trust worth keeping, a fight worth winning. Mom had known I'd protect what mattered. She just hadn't known I'd use her story to protect everyone else too. But I think somewhere she was smiling about that. After all, she'd been a teacher to the end, and her final lesson was her most important document. Everything. Trust wisely and never let them see you coming until the trap is already sprung. Thank you all for listening to this story. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and discuss your thoughts on this tale of justice and neighborhood loyalty. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. And don't forget to press the hype button to help more people discover this story. Your support means everything.